John McClane is just too damn proud, and nothing could have made him not deliver, cause that's his business. And with a lot of fights and gunplay, he blew that plane up on the runway. And with a little help from Alan, Holly's plane could land. We're gonna die, 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 die hard. We're gonna die, 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 die hard. We're gonna die, 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 die hard. We're gonna die, 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 die as hard as we can. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. No one dies harder than John McClane, saving all the passengers on the train. When Simon wasn't clear with his intentions, it was just a distraction. And there was no way McClane could know that Hans Gruber was Simon's bro. And that's what made it Die Hard with a vengeance, with Samuel Jackson. And the good cop wouldn't miss this, even though it wasn't Christmas. He didn't get any help from Alan, but only in part 3. We're gonna die, 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 die hard. We're gonna die, 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 die hard. We're gonna die, 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 die hard. We're gonna die, 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 die as hard as we can. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
All right, welcome to Lovecraft Live. We've got to check our sound. This is the first time King B and I are doing this by ourselves. So can we please get in the chat a confirmation that you can hear me? Okay. We're getting some cheers, but we've already got a hype train incoming. What? And fantastic, they can hear me. Now, King B, say something. This is all Jean's fault. Can anybody hear King B? Aronson, thank you for the cheers. All Might, thank you for the cheers. No B. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna do this, guys, no matter what, and I will relay what he's saying in my head, and he's going to be in the chat. We apologize. Without Gene, clearly we are lost, but I am here, and you can hear me, and B is here. You just can't hear him. But for those of you joining us, welcome to Lovecraft Live, the official instant Twitch companion piece to Shot on TV Lovecraft Country. I'm one of your hosts, Ashley Schlafly, and like I said, my co-host King B is here. He is in the ether. He is out there. This is basically, for those of you who have not joined us before, it's a super quick and interactive look at how you, the audience, how we kind of feel about the episode that we just watched, which is entitled Whitey's on the Moon, and what we plan to cover on our Wednesday Deep Dive podcast. And that's where we're going to be kind of leaning on you. We want this to be a collective thing where we all come together and kind of just chat about exactly what it is that we should be covering on the deep dive. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you don't miss an episode. And you can also do that wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting shatontv.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to join us all week here on Twitch. On Tuesdays, we have Getting By with the King B, where you actually will be able to hear him and see him. Squad Goals on Wednesdays, which is usually Gene and I, and King King B joins often, and sometimes Big D does. And then we end the week with our big fun Shappy Hour cocktail party on Fridays. And that is where we're actually going to be reading some of the best Lovecraft Country emails that we get for the week. And before we kind of dive into this, I just want to give a shout out here. We have been on for less than like 5 minutes, and we are already 95% of the way there for a hype train. So for those of you who have never joined us before, hype trains are something that we kind of get. We unlock emotes. It's a way to support the podcast by getting cheers and by getting bits. And if you're curious about how to do that, if you're new, there's a little bitty diamond icon next to your chat box that you can click on, and you can do exactly what Aaron's son just did. Thank you so much, Aaron's son, who has made us reach our hype train. I don't think we've ever had a hype train before on Lovecraft Live. Do you know, B? I don't think we have. No. Yeah, I mean, this is only the second one, but I mean, I think it's pretty great. So thank you so much to absolutely everybody who is joining us. We have almost 40 people here, which is a huge increase from last week. So thank you. And if you're wondering where Gene is, he is on vacation, a well-deserved vacation. He actually comes back tonight. So we will be recording our deep dive like normal with the three of us tomorrow night, and he will be back to handle all of the techness. Ashley Schlafly is very good at many things. Tech, maybe not so much, but Judivar, I am lucky to have King B in my head. We're all lucky to have a little bit of King B in our heads. But let's go ahead and dive straight into this episode. So what we do tonight, we're basically just giving you guys, like I said, a little bit of a rundown of what we thought of the episode. This is going to be the only point where you get to hear our opinions and our thoughts about the episode. We try to kind of keep that out of the deep dive because you guys probably don't subscribe to a podcast to listen to us critique it or to just gush all over it. So instead, that's where you may hear some opinions come out tonight. And then we are going to get into our topics for the deep dive. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm feeling a little weird about tonight, you guys. I definitely think that the show has found its own voice, let's say. It's very much a monster movie of the week, kind of a Twilight Zone feel. But this episode I thought was a little strange. At some point throughout the episode, B and I were kind of messaging back and forth on Slack, and he said, he mentioned the show Goosebumps, and I had just written that down. And I think I want to maybe even put a bit more of a finer point. I felt like this episode was, I don't know if you guys remember Are You Afraid of the Dark, but it was like the Nickelodeon Are You Afraid of the Dark meets that show Charmed, meets the movie National Treasure, where they're like, a secret fraternity and they're going off and trying to find secret passages, like when they search for Montrose. And I'm not saying necessarily that is a bad thing. I just think that tonality wise, it's a bit difficult. We've got here Impow's talking about how the episode felt cheesy. I'm good with cheesy. I don't have a problem with cheesy if it's intentional and if they're trying to be intentional with it. And I think that's what I mean about tonality. I'm not sure that they know yet if it's supposed to be funny and kind of campy or if it's supposed to be serious, because it feels somewhere in between. And B, if you could encapsulate for them kind of what you're feeling, or if you want to tell me, I can let them know. I know you told me before. I know I see the shit you're talking in the chat. That our deep dive will be more, background. And I love to hear that B has already said snake dick. So let's talk about that big moment, guys, because I messaged Gene and King B at that exact moment in the episode. And I went, y'all, I don't know if I can do this, when a literal trouser snake came out of his pants and was such bad CGI. To Impow's point, Impow 1571, your point, bad CGI, like that snake dick looked bad, y'all. Like it didn't look great. Yeah, B is saying it's very Goosebumps. Like it was very much a Goosebumps of, like, I was expecting like Jack Black to come out of like the chest there and be like, oh, this is one of the books that we've opened, like he does in that movie. Like, I mean, it was bad. I mean, that part, at least for me. And the vampires, I guess they're kind of like trimmer vampires. Like we saw an additional piece of them this week, that they're subterranean, which continues my annoyance with them being called vampiric in any way. And they also, I'm not, it'd be saying we got to stop calling them vampires, but I mean, that's what they're calling them in the show. I mean, they're calling them vampires. So I don't know, but we've got here, I mean, people, let's go to the chat and let's see what some people are saying, because somebody had mentioned earlier that the monsters still look pretty bad. Let's see. Do we think it's intentional? So 204, see, that's my question, right? Like, is it intentional? And I am all for it being intentional. I love camp. I love it. I have no issue with it. I just want to know that it's for sure campy. I do think that one of the interesting things here is that Halosaurus Rex is talking about that the cow gave birth to the vampire. This is a question they're asking. And I actually asked the same question in our group chat. I was like, did that cow just give birth to one of these vampiric creatures? And I'm okay, and B has an answer for it. So he's gonna give us that. Can you give us that in the chat, B, please? He's reading it to me. Well, let me stop there. So B is saying that in Lovecraftian horror, which he's much more of an expert in than I am, he's saying that there's always an instance of alchemy per se. And so that it's most likely that these creatures have been grown by this Order of the Dawn group, the secret society, and that they've been grown and implanted basically in the cow basically is like what you're saying, B. It's like a vessel, right? Like the cow's a vessel. Right. And I want you guys to know that you missed out on him saying roomy womb, that it's a roomy womb for these vampires to grow. I do think it's interesting that if it's breached, like that's the sign. And I mean, I was pretty impressed too with Christine. I mean, that was a pretty expensive, really nice silk shirt she had on, and she just got all up in there. But that being said, I think that that's really interesting though. I mean, I wish, and I think this is what we were talking about last week. We talked about pacing. That was Jean's big topic, was pacing. And I think this is where some pacing really maybe could come in handy, is if we slow down a little bit, because I would like to learn about these creatures. I would like to learn about who the Order of the Dawn is before Tick totally wipes them out. And Cam's bringing up a great point that Richies don't wash their blouses. And that's probably true, even with cow uterine pieces on it. But I think that it's... I do think it's interesting. And yeah, 2-4, I think they had to get it out before they killed the cow. I think that totally makes sense. But is anybody else a little disappointed, though, that we've learned about the subterranean tremor vampire? We've learned how they're birthed. We know there's a secret society that apparently you can cut out some dude's liver and serve it to people, and he survives and goes on to spell another day, and he's opening to the Garden of Eden. So we've been introduced to all this, but now it's kind of like all done. Like we're moving on now to the poltergeisty storyline, it looks like, from the preview for next week, if you watched it. So I think that that's going to be interesting. Flavor Dave, I think it's great that you brought up that it had a Get Out vibe. So everybody knows that Jordan Peele is involved in the show, and that he wrote and directed. But he wrote it too, didn't he? Do you know? Okay, we don't know. So simple Google search, although we got hated on for having to do a Google search last time, but I think he wrote it as well. But he, he was involved, right? He was the director of it, that now he's an executive producer on this show. And so I agree. There's some Get Out type horror. Like I felt a lot of like that, kind of the horror that the dad horror that's in Us. In that movie, it was that type of horror with this opening with the Jeffersons. I thought that was very Jordan Peele. And I do want to bring up a point that B has a point about the liver. I know the liver can regenerate, but Still, I mean, it looked like a pretty hefty piece they cut. It didn't look like just like a tiny bit. That being said, let's move on. Let's see. I wrote notes, you guys. Jean would be so proud. Let's see. We talked about, let's talk about what I thought was one of the greatest lines in this episode, where they're talking about the KKK, and Tick says that apparently they're actual grand wizards now, and Christina says that they would never associate with the KKK, though this order wouldn't, and Tick kind of looks at her like she's crazy and said, well, they're too poor. I thought that was some really great humor. I thought that was a great moment in the show. I thought that Journey Smollett's, her entire monologue that she gives, and the whole scene where she's wiping the blood off, like her acting, she's fantastic in this show. There are moments that feel genuinely good, and that's what I'm hoping we see more of kind of moving forward. Internet Hippo, I like that point that they did bring Letitia back from the dead, so a liver probably is manageable. True. I feel like that's a pretty fair point. But I do think that, this order, are we going to know anything else about it? Is it going to continue to be a creature feature? I think that kind of what is going to be the thing that holds the threads together, I think is going to be something that we have to kind of figure out over the next couple of weeks. 2 of 4, I like what you brought up here about the pregnant lady. So that, at least the way I understand it, that is Tick's mother or descendant, not his mother, but his great grandmother. I don't know the lineage, but that is the individual that went out and birthed the eventual individual that gave birth, to him, right? And so that's his ancestor that's leading him out. She got out clearly during the fire, and so her ghost, her spell, her whatever it is, led him out. Yeah, thank you, Showtime, ancestor. So I think that it was actually really pretty cool. Let's see. The only other thing I had on here before we move on to what we'll talk about on the deep dive, love the Manson song. I'm a huge Marilyn Manson fan, you guys, and I really enjoyed hearing Manson on this episode. And there was some pretty great music in general in this episode, which I think is a really good segue into the second piece of what this live show is, which is for us to talk about what we're going to talk about on the deep dive. B is going to put it in the chat here, but just to kind of capture what he told me ahead of time, he is going to be looking into the songs that feel a little bit out of place. And B, if I totally misrepresent what you said, to interrupt me or scream at me in the chat. But that basically there's some songs, the Jeffersons, for example, Whitey on the Moon, just like how the James Baldwin speech was out of time for this show last week. We had music this week that was clearly out of time, that was telling a story. And so he is going to dig into those pieces, including what this episode got its title from, which is the song Whitey on the Moon by Gil Scott Heron. And it's actually pretty interesting. We were chatting a little bit beforehand about this is actually a pretty appropriate song for today. And so he's going to be diving into some of that. The topic that I'm going to be looking into is going to be the dream sequences, or the hallucinations that they're experiencing. Our 3 main characters, George, Letitia, and Tick, when they're in their rooms, kind of trapped there and on display. You've got Tick, who is having the fight with someone that looks a lot like the individual that is the Marsian woman at the beginning of the episode. So that fight that he's having, this character of Dee that is introduced with George. We know that George has another wife that he is married to. So looking into that, and then also looking into this almost sex scene, it felt like going toward rape scene, trouser snake, snake dick episode with Letitia. So I'm going to be kind of diving into what those 3 things look like. We don't know yet what Gene is going to be covering, so let's make it easy on him. And in the chat here, let us know kind of what your questions are, or what topics you want to know more about. And already I'm writing something down, which is from Shadow Time. Shadow Time, thanks for bringing that up. Shadow Time's talking about here how the ancestor, the woman that Tick is following out, that she's carrying some sort of book. I agree. It could be a grimoire. It could be something to do with this order, with witchcraft or wizardry. So I think that is actually a really interesting thing that perhaps we can look into. Let's see here. We've got 2 of 4. How about the white-haired chick? So Christina. So if you guys remember on the preview episode, we talked about how there is a character in the books that is Samuel's son. And that character is now, it's gender swapped. And I think it's pretty interesting because as we find out in this episode, she can't join the order because she is a woman. And that I think creates a really interesting dichotomy there and is going to change what her character is capable of doing. So I agree 2 of 4. We're going to look into Christina and just who is she and can she act? That was a question that we asked on the preview episode. She's a model. She's never been in anything before. So I think she's doing pretty well so far, and she's really beautiful. Let's see. Aaron's son, the fact that George is probably Tick's dad. And I think that's probably going to, I'm assuming, coincide with who this D woman is and in his hallucination. Internet Hippo, thank you. We will look into the Book of Names. King B, I want to tell you. So King B has said here that there's a bargain bin Alexander Skarsgård. I was so confused, you guys. I actually stopped it and did the thing on Prime where you can look up who the people are, the actors in the show, because I thought I was like, wow, Alexander Skarsgård is not aging well, but it isn't him. So I do agree with you there. Sorcha, yes, we're going to look into that book, whether it's an ancestors book, a grimoire, whatever it is. Yes, I'm going to assume that Christina made it out of the house just because, I don't know, maybe because I'm a book reader. I don't know, no spoilers, but I'm hoping that she did. I'm hoping we have somebody from this group. Otherwise, how's it going to connect? Let's see. Anything else, guys? Anything else that we want to cover? And 2 of 4, I agree. I think Christine is very much creepy, beautiful. We'll go ahead and get in the chat here. Any last things that you want us to look at? I am super excited to be doing this with you guys. I'm really excited for Gene to be coming back. Hopefully he will be proud that we actually got on, and y'all, the sound work and you can see my face. And even though you can't hear me, he's there. So we were here, we showed up. Pretty excited about that. And Holosaurus Rex, interesting point. The men turned to stone. So did William make it out? That's really interesting. B, anything that you want to add before we start wrapping things up? He's the coolest. We are the coolest. All right. Well, I think this was a successful Twitch Instacast. Thank you guys so much for being here. We got a hype train. You guys are awesome. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. If you do not follow us on Twitter, we would love to have you there at Chat on TV. Additionally, please make sure you chat with us all week on Discord. I just put a link in the chat here. Discord's a fun place. It's kind of like Twitter, but more personal, where we can all get together. We talk all week about everything from soccer to food to COVID to TV to movies to just random shit. We would love to have you on there. Please make sure to get on there. And otherwise, stay tuned. We will be recording the deep dive tomorrow night. It will be released on Wednesday. And get your emails and your voicemails in. Please feel free to write to us at host@chatontv.com. We've already gotten 5 emails this week. We would love to get a lot more. Also, feel free to call and leave us a voicemail. We would love to have you do so. I will make sure to post the number because I don't know it by heart, which is really terrible. But I'm actually going to look it up right now so that you guys can call. It is 914-719-SHAT. That is 914-719-SHAT. I'm doing my best. So please make sure to call in, leave us voicemails. We'd love to hear your voices. We like to have you guys do some of the talking. We may use them on the deep dive. We may use them during Shappy Hour. We just want to have a conversation with you guys. So thanks so much for joining us. We had a great time. Great episode. I mean, it's great to be with you. And we look forward to talking to you soon. So thanks so much. Have a great night. Stay the fuck at home. And make sure to subscribe and leave us some reviews. And we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.